Support for the CivicSciTV network comes from listeners and viewers like you, and organizations such as the Rita Allen Foundation, which invests in transformative ideas in their earliest stages to leverage their growth and promote breakthrough solutions to significant problems. Go to ritaallen.org to learn more.
Mapping the global landscape of civic science by dissecting new insights from researchers, practitioners, and leaders in academia, government, for-profit, and non-profit organizations. This is Questions of the Day with Fanuel Muindi.
Previously on Questions of the Day.
That is our open grant competition every year where if you are a high school or college student anywhere between the age of 13 and 23, you have an idea to make your community a better, kinder place, whether it be an existing idea you want to build on or a brand new idea that you don't know where to start, you can apply for funding. But it's not just funding, it's a whole year professional development fellowship, and you have a cohort of other young leaders. This year, we're giving out 45 projects, and that you can have multiple people on projects, so it usually is about 80 to 100 fellows, so you get to know all of those fellows, and we bring them.
Welcome back to Questions of the Day. So today we are at the AAAS Conference in Boston, where I met up with JP Flores, an HHMI Gilliam Fellow and a PhD candidate in Bioinformatics and Computational Biology at UNC Chapel Hill. Why? Well, we wanted to learn more about his ongoing public engagement with science work, with a particular interest on a recent Civic Engagement Microgrant that he and his team received from Research America. He tells me the why, the what, how, when, where, when of the project, and how they plan to define impact, and well, so much more. Check it out. JP Flores, thank you so much for joining me. So we are the AAAS, the 2025 in Boston. So tell us, why are you here?
Yeah, I think the AAAS is a great conference for me because I'm very interested in bridging science and society. This is my first AAAS conference, but everyone has said amazing things about it. And, I'm really interested in learning about what people are doing on the science policy side. How are people doing policy for science, and how are people doing science for policy?
Yeah.
And also, I'm learning there's a lot of civic engagement as well. So, I'm hoping to learn about all of that as well.
Yeah, so you have an impressive portfolio of public engagement work, and you're a graduate student. So tell us, how do you balance it all?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I get this question a lot, and the balance comes from my prioritization, right? I think as a scientist, we forget that, yes, we form hypotheses, design experiments, interpret the results, but we are also in charge of sharing all of the things that we find, right? So when I think about a scientist, public engagement is just part of being a scientist. And I truly, firmly believe that, right? So it's not just designing my experiments, thinking of hypothesis, it's how can I get this out to my community? How can I get it to the public in more than just scientific journals?
Yeah, so how do you then balance the work? Because give us them some, so the time is the issue here, right? You are almost going to be defending soon.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard, right? Yeah, so tell us about that.
Yeah, the time thing, again, it's more of my 9 to 5, right? I do my experiments,
Yep.
But I'm also computational. So my strategy is actually to divvy up the week, right? So my Tuesdays are my writing, editing days, public engagement, civic engagement days. Experiments could be a Wednesday, analyses could be a Thursday. And a lot of the time on Mondays and Fridays, I'm thinking about, how do I frame this story? Because I think a lot of science, it can be narrative. You think about all your failures. So the balance really comes from divvying up my week and dedicating whole days to thinking about certain things in my project.
So including public engagement.
Including public engagement, yes. There's another lab mate. I have a lab mate who is very passionate about storytelling and science, data visualization. So it was serendipitous for me because, Mondays, Fridays, we can go in a lab and talk about, all right, here's our slide deck. Let's storyboard, this story, or let's think about how do we go to a brewery and talk about all these different things.
Yeah. Now talk about a brewery. Let's talk about that because some of your public engagement work is at a brewery, right?
Yes.
So tell us about that story. And then in the context of what anchors your public engagement as well.
Yeah, so I am a part-time bartender in Carborough, North Carolina. I'm a first-generation student, and I have to send money home to my family and things like that. But one day I was at the bar, and when people started realizing that I was a scientist, it's an immediate, what the heck does that mean? Because they've never met a scientist, right? So that's when I had an epiphany of like, breweries are a great place to engage with the public. Our brewery especially is inclusive. It has non-alcoholic options and things like that. So here I am bartending. I am also an HHMI Gilliam Fellow. And every year we have this Gilliam conference. I met this other student at the University of Oregon. Her name is Angelique Allen. And she told me how she ran a brewery event in Eugene, Oregon. So she studies octopuses, right? And she was like, on the beer label, we had someone from the community, think of illustrations for this label. And I got to write research facts on it. And I hopped on that because I told her, I'm a bartender. I can easily make this happen. Let's apply for a grant from Research America, the Civic Engagement Microgrant, and let's, pitch this idea. And we'll bring you out to North Carolina. We'll, ask the mayor to come in. We'll get labs to share the research. And that's how that idea came to be.
And you actually got the grant.
And we actually got the grant, yeah. And my PI is super excited to talk about, science. We're yet to have our stuff on beer labels. And we're also asking other labs to do this as well. So there's coral labs at UNC. There's labs doing climate research. We are trying to bring them in so that we can have a bi-monthly beer. I see. That celebrates their research.
Okay. So let's decode that, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of your anchoring moment right now. With some funding, so you're going to be dedicating time.
Right.
Walk us through. So what is the primary goal for this project?
Yeah, it's to raise awareness of or shed light on what scientists actually do. Okay. As a first-generation student, my parents had no idea what the heck I did. Right? They had no idea how even college works. So when I tell them I'm doing a PhD, they're like, "Oh, like, are you treating patients? What are you doing?" It's not that kind of doctor, right? So just the fact, just telling them how cell culture works, right? Showing them videos of that, they're kind of like, "Whoa, this is wild." And I think everyone deserves to see that. And science is paid for by the public. This is taxpayer money, and I think everyone should see what we are doing.
Okay, so at a brewery. So tell me, how is it going to work out in a brewery, and then who's the audience?
So the audience is going to be, I'm also on the board of Chapel Hill Carborough City Schools Biomedical Sciences Advisory Board, basically. So I'm going to invite leaders in education in that area, high school students, because it's an inclusive event, the town of Carborough. So I also have a podcast. I interviewed our mayor, and she is a scientist who works in a lab as her day job. So she was intrigued by this idea. She's going to come to this event. We're going to invite underserved populations in rural areas around the brewery as well. Yeah, so that's kind of the audience, and the people that are going to be there are giving talks will be, my PI, who will be talking about what our research actually is. We study leukemia. We are going to have Angelique come in from the University of Oregon. We're going to have a brewer come in to talk about the science of brewing.
Science line.
Yep. And yeah, like I said, every couple months or so, we're going to have a new researcher come in to talk to the public about their stuff. And we hope to have, a big audience and the same audience, right? So elected officials, local elected officials, and just members of the community.
Yeah. And so would you be providing training for those who are presenting? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I've only been talking about the beer label design.
Yeah.
We are actually also doing a beer label design workshop the next day. So what we're doing is we're contacting all the local universities in our area, UNC, Duke, NC State, Wake Forest. We are having about 30 labs come in, and we're going to walk them through how to create a beer label. And those beer labels, we hope, will be released by the brewery. And so it's just an ongoing process. It's going to be a huge endeavor, but that is our goal as far as training.
Yeah.
To do that, we're going to have graphic designers from the school come in.
But let me stop you there for a second, because my questions were about those who are presenting, right, to the public. Are you providing any training there, or are you assuming they're going to come in knowing how to sort of give a public talk, right, to a mixed audience?
Yeah, we are providing training. We're trying to figure out how to do it though, right?
Okay.
So I gave a talk at our studio a couple years ago, and they gave us speaker training.
Okay.
So we were like, maybe we could go to them, that company's articulation. We also have a science communication fellow at HHMI. So we were also thinking maybe we can have her give a little training workshop or something.
Yeah.
Or if you have an idea, that'd be great too.
Yeah. So part of the reason I'm asking is, giving these talks it requires some skill set, right?
Exactly.
At times, giving a scientific talk is different. There's some overlapping things, but it's somewhat different.
Yep.
And sounds like the people who are giving talks will also be diverse in themselves. Graduate students,
faculty,
yeah. So different skill sets there as well, right? So I was just curious whether there's a training component on that. So tell me, so this is like an hour event. How long is that? Give us the mechanics.
It's about to be. It's going to be 6 to 10 p.m. is going to be the event with all the talks, and it's also going to be like a release party of the beer label itself, and the beer. And then the next day, the beer label workshop will be about 4 hours, so 1 to 5.
So that's a big commitment. So you anticipate people coming back again for the following, tell us about that.
It'll be 2 different audiences.
Oh, 2 different audiences.
It might have the same people, right? So the first day, we are advertising to just everybody, right? The second one is going to be tailored to scientists. And now that I'm talking about this out loud, maybe we could even have training workshops for those scientists on that second day. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, so we love doing that here. We're decoding it.
That's why we're at a conference, right?
We're at a conference. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so when you think about evaluation, right?
Yes,
this is a big word. What is the main outcome that you hope to see from this work?
Long term, like a big change I would want to see is, I think a lot of departments and labs and universities should really think about science communication more holistically, right? I would hope that departments can commit to making sure their students are prepared to give a science talk to multiple audiences, whether it be a technical audience at like at a conference that is designed just for their field, or they can come to AAAS where you have scientists from all over.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would love if they can also go into a library and talk to 9-year-olds about their stuff too, right? I think that is kind of what I want long term. But I guess the short term goal here with this project would be show people that it does matter and that you can bring in a lot of people and you can bring in people to care, right? I think that it would be an amazing goal to accomplish.
So do you plan to do surveys of some kind?
Yeah, we do plan to do surveys. We are working with social scientists right now. It's weird because I'm on multiple social science projects, so I have a team of social scientists.
Again, how do you do this? I don't know, but go ahead.
Yeah, we could talk about this after. So our goal is to get things about, was this useful for you as a scientist? And from the public, we want to ask them, did you get a lot out of it? Would you come back? Right? I think evaluation is important because I do think you do need data to show that this is working. And if you want policy to move, let's say, in that direction, I would love to go to my department and be like, hey, this is data to suggest that this is working and we need to do this. We need to invest in this.
So it's just saying, okay, I have gained this so-and-so skill set. In this case, oral communication by the public. And then it is stuck, for example, right? I've gone ahead and done it somewhere else. And on that note, I'm thinking, there are many other initiatives that are doing these sort of things. Story Collider comes to mind.
Yeah, PBS. Right? That's PBS.
PBS has several talks like that. Taste of Science, right? All these events where it take place at a brewery. We recently did an expose on one in New Hampshire, right? They're there. Did you look at their models and try to figure out, okay, where are areas where we should not do that so that ours can advance, right, the knowledge base?
Yeah, we did look at those models and we try to get the best out of them. I don't think there's ever an instance where we were like, oh, that was bad.
Right.
It's more of like, how can we take these elements out of all these different programs that are doing something similar and use them for our goal, right? So we have looked at those programs, but other than Story Collider and Taste of Science, I can't think of any others.
Is there something specific? Is there something specific that you took that you can share from the
just
program?
The power of story? I think that was the big thing for us, was making sure that these scientists, hopefully they can come in and have that element of warmth. They can build trust with their audience, and they can have a compelling story that keeps people engaged from start to end.
Right. I think New York is another place where there's quite a few of these initiatives like this that take place. And then in the long term, so you're launching this, right?
Yes.
What is your sustainability plan? Is there one?
There's a sustainability plan in the form of, we hope that people love it and that we can get a department to commit. I know the brewery is very committed to this because they love contributing to their community. And what I'm trying to do is also get the town involved and the town council involved, so that we can try and form these collaborations with local universities and institutions. I think, at least from my experience, it feels like a lot of academic institutions, organizations, they are kind of disconnected to the people in there, people right down the street, right? So I'm hoping that people will see how important this is for the community, not just the students that are in these departments, but all around for science and all around for society.
Do you talk to graduate students and postdocs to get some insights? Okay, this actually will be useful to have.
Oh yeah. I mean,
what do they tell you?
I mean, they talk about how hard it is to go home during holidays and talk about science, and how training is important, right? And so training opportunities like this can help them, not just for their science, but also their daily lives, right? As a bartender, it was really hard to talk to a patron about my science, but now I have like a pitch, right? Like it's very quick. I study how genes turn on and off and why. As simple as that. And from there, I can pick their brain about where they're confused. I can draw diagrams for them and really talk about my research in a fun way.
Yeah. And so we are the AAAS, right? And so first time attending, and
I'm excited.
And you're about to defend as well, right? So tell us how you see your career progressing, and some of the things that you want to do, and how is the public engagement, a loaded question in there. How has public engagement informed your decision making toward your career choices?
Yeah, so I like to think about the end goal for my career to be focused on 3 prongs: science communication, public engagement, science policy, and the science itself. So right now I study gene regulation, but I'm really also passionate about diversifying the STEM workforce. And it's important to communicate science to diverse populations, right? And it's important that it's coming from diverse scientists as well. I want to study rare disease genetics and genomics because I really want to focus on marginalized populations, right? I think patients with rare disease, are often overlooked. The field is very underfunded. So I was taking a class at UNC called Design Thinking for the Public Good. And in this class, I learned that if you design solutions for the people that are the most marginalized, that can be extended to men. So like in the class, we're taught, if you design a solution for someone without an arm, you design a solution for someone with a broken arm, or a parent with a newborn infant, right? And that's when it all clicked. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, science-wise, maybe if I study the mechanisms of rare disease, that can help inform the more common diseases. At the same time, I have this podcast. I chatted with a Netflix director with a rare bone disease. We were kind of chatting, and she was like, it would be really awesome if we could share the stories of other rare disease patients just to get the public engaged with this so that they are aware and know, right? So that was the public engagement science communication arm. Lastly, I think it's important to also go to also do science policy so that we can get these things funded. So I'm imagining a loop where you have research that can help do the science communication and tell stories. We can bring these stories to lawmakers or people that are talking about funding for science, and that will go back into my science.
Yeah,
so it's a full circle.
Because you do want to have a scientific lab, right?
Correct.
And you have this science communication and civic engagement.
Exactly.
Part of the DNA.
Yeah.
Trying to tell me if I'm overstepping there, but is that right?
Yes, exactly. And I think not a lot of labs do that, right? Like I want to put that in my lab guidelines, right? That is what you are committing to if you're going to be in my lab.
Yeah.
We're going to do great science. We're going to focus on rare disease mechanisms, but also we're going to focus on science communication. We're going to focus on science policy. I want to build a well-rounded scientist is how I think about
Of course, this isn't easy, right? The multiple hurdles, time being at the top of that list, funding another, right?
Right.
The changing landscape as we speak right now. What do you see as being the big, or maybe what has been the biggest challenge so far, right, in doing this work, and how have you navigated it?
I guess the biggest challenge would be, are you talking about civic engagement in general?
Yeah,
or just
like
trying to
how
achieve my dream?
infusing the civic engagement work into your scientific sort of persona, because you've been doing it as a used to, and you want to keep doing it.
Right.
What have those challenges been?
The biggest barrier has been people saying that it shouldn't matter as much as the other things. It didn't matter as much as the science. And to me, it doesn't compute in my head, because I'm like, it goes hand in hand, right? Like if you were going to a conference, like I remember as an early graduate student going to a conference in my own field and not knowing what was going on, because, you know, some speakers had no idea how to talk to their audience, right? Well, I remember being on the other side of the bar and having a scientist in a different field talk to me about their research, and they were also struggling and I was struggling, right? So I think the barrier is we just don't have, as a enterprise, scientific enterprise, there is no commitment to civic engagement right now. And I really laud the people that are invested in making sure that we are trained to do this, and making sure that, you know, we can plug how important it is to scientists, because it is important, right? Like I want to be able to walk down the street and tell someone about my research and have them be like, oh, that's really cool and important. Like I should probably think about everything going on right now and rally with you to try and
to even ask you questions that you like, I never thought of it that way.
Exactly.
Or something.
Yeah. Because I think, you know, I think everyone is a scientist, right? I think there are citizen scientists everywhere, right? These are people that are maybe not trained in science, but they have that inquisitive, you know, thinking. They have the curiosity. Those people can contribute to what we're doing, and that's why civic engagement matters.
Yeah. Now, okay, so I wish I could just keep talking to you.
Yeah,
we'll keep talking to you.
This is fun.
We're here still at AAAS.
Yeah.
Advice for other emerging civic engagers out there. What would you tell them at this point in time?
Yeah, I guess this is more practical advice. This isn't more of like a huge, broad takeaway. But I think as you get further along in your training, it is okay to bring these things up to people around you and to bring it up to your PI, your principal investigator, for example. That's what I tell people that are coming into UNC's program is, hey, I noticed that you really care about science communication. You don't need to like shy away from your PI. You can talk to them about it, because it's part of your training as a scientist. It's your professional development training, right? And I think people forget about that. So I think it's important to bring it up early and really spread awareness of how important it is.
And what about the public? So, right, so the audience are the general public, not experts necessarily. What would you tell them about why this work is taking place? Why are scientists getting involved, right? And so forth.
Yeah, I mean, again, it is because we are trying to bridge science and society. Science is such a big driver for progress in society, and I think the public should know that, you know, if we're doing civic science, it brings them in as well. We're all in this together, right? I'm a scientist by training, right? But I'm still contributing to society, but that's just as important as another career, right? So I think that is why it matters, why it should matter to the public.
Well, we'll look forward to having you back, because we want to hear some of the data that you've been collecting. you will collect
Yes.
from your project, and because we've had other civic engagers, the micrograntees come on the program and tell us what they've learned from the work, previous grantees. So
Awesome.
you're just starting out, so we are gonna just keep a tab on you, and welcome you back to say, hey, you collect some data. Tell us what you saw, what happened, right?
Yeah,
Really,
sounds good.
JP Flores, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.